In 988, Kyiv was the most powerful city in the Eastern world, but Russian imperial historians buried that legacy over 3 centuries, and the reason why reshapes everything you think you know about who gets to own history. You were never taught this in school. There's a reason. The city that built European civilization was quietly written out, and the people who did it used the one tool you can never take back, the textbooks your children read. In the 10th century, Kyiv wasn't a regional center. It was a world capital. Population estimates put it between 50 and 100,000 people, larger than Paris, larger than London, a rival to Constantinople. The Kyiv Rus covered more territory than the Holy Roman Empire, with trade routes running from Scandinavia to Persia. Yaroslav the Wise, Grand Prince of Kyiv, died 1054, married his daughter to the King of France. His son to the daughter of the King of Sweden. Kyiv didn't borrow prestige from other powers. Other powers borrowed legitimacy from Kyiv. And then someone decided that couldn't be true anymore. Here's what they didn't tell you. Moscow didn't exist yet. Not in 988. Not in 1050. Not when Kyiv was already 3 centuries old, already baptized into Christianity, already exporting laws and culture across the Slavic world. Moscow first appears in written records in 1147. By then, Kyiv had been a cultural center for 200 years. That's not a footnote. That's a foundational fact. The Rurik dynasty, the ruling line of the Kyiv Rus, built a state so dominant that every subsequent ruler spent centuries trying to claim descent from it. The Tsars claimed it. The Soviet state claimed it. Every power that wanted the right to speak for Slavic civilization needed Kyiv's legacy. But they couldn't share it, so one of them decided to own it instead and started rewriting what ownership meant. By the 13th century, the Mongols had broken Kyiv, 1240. The city burned, the population collapsed. Into that vacuum, smaller principalities scrambled: Novgorod, Vladimir, Tver, and eventually Moscow. The rise of Moscow wasn't inevitable, it was calculated. Muscovite princes cultivated the Mongol Khans. They served as tax collectors for the occupation. They consolidated slowly, brutally over 2 centuries. And when Moscow finally had the power to stand alone, it needed a story. In the 16th century, a monk named Philotheus wrote a letter to the Tsar. He called Moscow the Third Rome. The first Rome had fallen. Constantinople had fallen. Moscow, he wrote, would never fall. God's chosen heir. And the heir's inheritance, Kyiv Rus, but here's what doesn't add up. Kyiv wasn't Russian. The Kyiv Rus predates Russia as a political concept by centuries. The people who built it spoke Old East Slavic, a language that diverged over time into distinct branches. Ukrainian, Belarusian, Russian, related, not the same. That distinction showed up in their laws, their dialects, their customs. But in the 18th century, the distinction started vanishing from official documents, from history books, from imperial maps. Catherine the Great banned Ukrainian language publications. In 1876, Tsar Alexander II signed the Ems decree, making it illegal to print, import, or even teach in Ukrainian. That's not historical drift. That's a program. Here is the thing they never put in the textbooks. Kyiv's primacy is real if the Kyiv Rus is genuinely Ukrainian and not Russian. Then Moscow's entire claim to civilizational inheritance collapses. Not weakens, collapses. The legitimacy of the Tsars built on descent from Rurik. The Soviet framing that called Russians and Ukrainians fraternal peoples while starving one of them. Every modern political claim over that territory depends on Kyiv belonging to the Russian story, not the Ukrainian one. So the historians got to work. The phrase you'll find repeated in Russian imperial scholarship, and later Soviet scholarship, is that Kyiv is the mother of Russian cities. It sounds like reverence. It isn't. It's a legal claim dressed as affection. By calling Kyiv a Russian city, by reclassifying Ukrainian as a regional dialect rather than a distinct language, by suppressing the Cossack hetmanate and scattering its archives, they didn't erase Ukraine's past. They absorbed it, made Moscow the heir, made Kyiv the province. The origin story was rewritten with Moscow at the center, and the version taught across an empire stretching 11 time zones was Moscow's version. They had the printing presses. They had the archives. They had the armies. None of this is ancient. The Soviet school curriculum as recently as 1985 taught that the Kyiv Rus was the shared origin of 3 fraternal peoples, with Moscow as the natural, inevitable center of that inheritance. Ukrainian children in Ukrainian schools were taught this version. In a language that had been systematically suppressed for 100 years before being partially rehabilitated, then suppressed again. What you think of as settled history, the founding of civilization in the East, the lineage of modern Slavic states, is not settled. It was decided by specific people with specific interests at a specific historical moment. The version they chose has been running so long it looks like fact. That's how erasure works when it's done well. The archives of the Cossack Hetmanate, the autonomous Ukrainian state Catherine the Great dismantled in 1764, were scattered, suppressed, some destroyed entirely. Some researchers believe documents survive in Russian state archives that have never been declassified. What those documents say about Kyiv's legal claims to sovereignty, nobody officially knows. Nobody's been allowed to look.